Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a nice week, and it has been an interesting week, has it not? So a few stories we're going to cover, of course, is whether Keir Starmer will resign over the Mandelson scandal. I also want to cover a story that just dropped today regarding Reform UK. And also, will reform help the SNP in Scotland? So a few stories along with the DUP. The DUP need to mention because the DUP are up to their old tricks again. So I want to start off with this one here, which is absolutely insane. So a constituent, it seems, in Gorton and Denton received this letter in the post. Now, I'm not going to read the whole letter. It goes on for a bit. But it's basically, let me go back to it. It's basically a lady called Patricia Clegg complaining about the Labour Party, complaining about what's happening in the constituency. And she said that she spoke to other pensioners, I believe, and said that, who should we vote for? Well, we can't vote for the Green Party, so we have to vote for Reform UK. So this was a letter that many people in the constituency of Gorton and Denton received in the post. And it was just a letter. It says, "Dear neighbour," and it goes on for a bit. You can find it online. And it's signed Concerned Neighbour Patricia Clegg. So it's stuff about the problems going on in the government, problems that the things that the Labour Party did or didn't do, which she's not happy about. And of course, the only possible choice that people have in Gorton and Denton is Reform UK. Now, there's no mention of Reform UK in the letterhead. There's no mention of Reform UK when it comes to the posting of this letter. Just this letter arrives in people's letterboxes. They open it and read it. And it seems to be, a neighbour of mine is complaining and she's concerned about things and she's advising me to vote for Reform UK, according to what she's written in her letter. But as you'll see, there's a bit of a problem with this letter. So Turn Left Media, kudos to them. They're the ones who actually broke this story. One of their staff found out that the envelope that it was sent in was from a company called Harding Print Solutions. So they called Harding Print Solutions to find out where this letter came from.
Good afternoon, Hardings.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if I could speak with Patricia Clegg, please.
Patricia?
Please.
Oh, we don't have a Patricia here, I'm afraid.
Oh, right, okay. It's just I've received a letter that's got your address on the front claiming to be from a Patricia Clegg.
Right. Okay. No. What's the contents of the letter? Can you tell us? Or?
Yeah, it's relating to the by-election in Gorton and Denton.
Oh, the Reform Party, is it? Yeah. So we're the printers. We mail out on behalf of the Reform Party. So.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's so what we do is we print the letter and we send it out on their behalf.
Okay. So is that official election literature then that's been sent out? Is that what you do for them?
It's official literature that's created by the Reform Party and sent out by the Reform Party. And it's sent to people on the electoral register.
Okay, it's addressed, yeah. It's signed from Patricia Clegg, that was all, so I just wanted to...
Right, yeah, I'm not familiar with the content, so you'd have to, yeah, any queries on the content need to be directed to Reform Party because we're not responsible for the content, obviously.
Wonderful, not a problem. Thank you very much, then, really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, take care, bye-bye.
Wow. So there you have it. So Reform UK is sending out letters to people in Gorton and Denton and not saying it's actually from Reform UK and posing it as a letter from a concerned citizen, a concerned neighbour, as we saw here. Looks like a handwritten letter. Probably got somebody to handwrite it, or maybe they used a computer to simulate writing. And they're sending these out, telling people, let me just pull out some of the quotes from it. Keir Starmer's Labour government doesn't care about Gorton and Denton. Their tax rises have cost pensioners like me an extra £160 that we cannot afford. I remember how our last Labour MP, a government minister, wished that the local pensioner who asked about her bin collection would drop dead. And it goes on to say, let me see, it says about the Green Party... for me, this by-election comes down to a choice between broken promises from Keir Starmer and real change. That's why I'll be voting for Reform UK's candidate, Matt Goodwin, who grew up in Manchester. He did not grow up in Manchester. He was born in St Albans And he lived in London, I think, or maybe in Oxford. He didn't grow up in Manchester. Our area deserves somebody who will stand up for local people. It also said something about the Green Party. Where is it? Yeah, in the Gorton and Denton by-election, I understand some of our neighbours who have had enough of Keir Starmer are thinking of voting Green, but I do not believe that the Greens are the answer to our problems. They have extreme policies like legalising drugs and letting men use women's changing rooms. What good would that do for people like us? So the letter, of course, contains lies, but this is from Reform UK. And Reform UK put this out, as was pointed out here by Turn Left Media. And kudos once again to Turn Left Media for doing the investigation into this. Something, unfortunately, the mainstream media is not doing. It falls on independent media to do this. But this is what we're going to see going forward. This is what we're going to see at the general election. Lies, misinformation being put out by Reform UK, because they're not interested in the people of the constituency. They have to trick them into voting for them. They don't actually have any real policies that would convince people to vote for them. So they have to trick people. Like, this is different, I think, to, misleading information about another political party. And Reform have been doing it on I don't know how many occasions. The most recent one, of course, being Anna Sanwar in Scotland, where they took a clip of him and repurposed it to present him saying something that he wasn't really saying. They edited it to make it look like he was saying, we should only have Pakistanis voting in these elections, or we need to turn this around. We need to have more Pakistani representation in government, and that's it. When he was actually talking about the community needs to be more represented, not just Pakistanis. But of course, they were trying to present it like he was putting Pakistanis before anyone else, which was not true. But this is what Reform UK are all about. They're not interested in the truth, and they're treating the voters with contempt, because instead of actually presenting policies that would convince people to vote for them, they have to trick them into voting for them. A bit like it was Lee Anderson, when, remember the clip with Lee Anderson where he had to pretend that he had met somebody and this individual happened to be convinced to vote for Lee Anderson because he's such a great guy, when it turned out to be a friend of his. And he was caught in the act. Brian, thanks so much for that super chat. The biggest sign this is fraud is somebody wrote a letter in 2026. Well spotted. Who the hell writes letters anymore? But I think that was part of the point. It's like, what the hell? It grabs people's attention, and probably a lot of people were convinced by this. But well said, Brad. Well, Brad is right on the... Brad is way ahead of the curve on us. Reform did this in Caerphilly during the Hefin Davis funeral. My goodness. The TSOC has accepted the invitation to attend the White House on St. Patrick's Day. Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, God. We have to kiss Donald Trump's big orange backside, it seems. If the Tories submerge to Reform, then Labour would elevate to your party. What the heck? Yes, exactly. I would report them. They have been reported to the Electoral Commission, and it's likely that the Electoral Commission may issue a fine, but like we're talking about Reform UK, they have huge amounts of cash. So whatever fine they would receive, they would just pay the fine, if they don't contest it. But it's more likely they would just pay the fine and just continue doing it. Like, there's no punishment here. Like, issuing a fine, people should go to jail over this, because this is interfering with democracy. So, if Nigel Farage risks going to jail, I can guarantee you these types of shenanigans would end straight away. Isn't it illegal to not letterhead a campaign letter? Yes, I imagine it is illegal. But once again, Reform UK can break the law. See, the problem, the point here is you break the law, you tell the lie, and then apologise after. So no doubt somebody from Reform UK will be challenged about this, and eventually they'll say something like, oh, this was an intern sending out stuff without... as a joke, or an intern sending out things without our permission. This is how they'll respond. And if there is a fine to pay, they'll pay the fine, and then they'll just continue doing it. That's why it needs to be a criminal issue. Somebody needs to go to jail over this, not a fine. This is not a mistake. This is deliberate. There's nothing wrong with the printing company. They're just doing their job. They've been handed this material by Reform. Somebody came up. This was all brainstormed. This was not some mistake. This was not just a spur of the moment thing. This was brainstormed. Okay, how are we going to manipulate the people in Gorton and Denton? Let's come up with this. Hey, how about we put out a letter from a neighbour pretending to be a concerned neighbour, and then we throw in all of our propaganda into it. And we even tell them that Matt Goodwin is from the local area when he fucking isn't. The actual Green candidate is from Manchester. Matt Goodwin has probably never been to Manchester before this by-election campaign. And I can guarantee you, if he does win the seat, he'll spend as much time in it as Nigel Farage does in Clacton. Because he has no interest in this constituency. He's just there as a placeholder. He's there just to prop up Nigel Farage. Vote Reform, get ICE. Yes. That's what they want to emulate. Once again, I keep saying this. I mark my words. If Nigel Farage gets into number 10, it would be like Donald Trump in the White House. It's about filling his pockets. It's about rewarding sycophants, rewarding those loyal to him, and making money for them as well. It would be like the corruption of the Tories turned up to 11. That's what we're talking about here. Blame the intern, as the White House have done, about the post on Trump's social about Obama's. Yes, they did exactly that. Trump wouldn't apologize. They eventually took down the clip involving Obama and his wife. But they didn't apologize. Trump, of course, would never apologize. I find it funny that people are asking Trump to apologize. Trump would shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not apologize. So, of course, he's not going to apologize for this. How hard has it been media reform? Because the other countries do it better. There needs to be media reform, and not reform with a small r, of course. There needs to be a complete and utter reform of the media. You have a situation like this, and it will be picked up by local media. It'll be picked up by independent media, and that's about as far as it'll go. This should be front page news, but of course it won't be. This is undermining democracy. And, people will come out and vote for Reform UK based on this letter. This is really serious. And once again, fines should not be the issue here. It should be a case of somebody going to jail because they're manipulating the public. They are lying to the public. It was very clever of whoever did this to call the publisher and find out that it was from Reform, because somebody may think, oh, who's sending these letters? So most people would just dismiss it. They're like, what the hell is this about? And just throw it in the bin. But some people would read it, sit down and read it and think, oh yeah, maybe I should vote for Reform because this neighbour of mine is sharing the same concerns that I have. This was not put together willy-nilly. This was, this was focus grouped in a sense. This was put together professionally. Okay, what do? We start off with the grievances of the neighbour, then we talk about what Labour are not doing well, then we warn people against voting for the Green Party, and then finally, we have the pitch. We tell them who to vote for, and of course it's for Reform UK. Free toilet paper, said Chatty Rat, yes. Labour won't do Ledson 2, so there'll be no media reform. No, it's like we're afraid to do stuff. Why does the press want Mr. Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister? Because it's good for them. I keep thinking it's good for the press love Nigel Farage. Why is Reform UK constantly on Question Time? Why is Zia Youssef on more than the Greens? Because he attracts attention. The media love attention. The media would love the idea of Nigel Farage as Prime Minister because they don't give a shit about the country. They care about clicks and likes. Nigel Farage, Prime Minister, wonderful. Every day he'll be doing something dramatic. He'll be driving lots of traffic to our websites. Traffic to our websites equals advertising revenue. Advertising revenue means profit. So that's what they want. They want to see Nigel Farage as Prime Minister. I'm convinced. Why are they not giving him a hard time? Why are they not really challenging him? There are the odd journalists that will, challenge him. But and it's always at a local level. There are some journalists in Wales who really challenge Farage. There are journalists in Scotland. There are journalists at the local level in England and Scotland. They are the ones who will challenge Nigel Farage. But the big journalists, as we'd say, the ones from Sky News, the ones from the BBC, from ITV, the famous journalists, they won't really challenge Farage because they want to keep on his good side because they know that he could be Prime Minister someday. Even LBC do not have a hard line. Unless it's James O'Brien, but then Nigel Farage will never be on James O'Brien's show. That's the problem. He'll go on Nick Ferrari's show. Why? Because Nick Ferrari will tickle his belly, and vice versa. Anyway, guys, let's move on to the main story, of course, which is Peter Mandelson. Police searched 2 addresses in relation to Mandelson probe. The Metropolitan Police have confirmed that they're carrying out searches at 2 addresses as part of their investigation into Peter Mandelson. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Hayley Stewart of the Metropolitan Police said, "I can confirm that officers from the Met Central Specialist Crime Team are in the process of carrying out search warrants at 2 addresses, one of them in Wiltshire area and the other in Camden area. The searches are related to the ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man. He has not been arrested and inquiries are ongoing." Sky News has contacted Lord Mandelson for comment. He has previously said in a statement, "I was wrong to believe Epstein following his conviction and to continue my association with him afterwards. I apologise unequivocally for doing so to the women and girls who suffered." I asked this question on social media. If I discovered that my friend was a paedophile, I'd want nothing to do with the individual. If I discovered that my friend was the friend of a paedophile, I would want nothing to do with him either. So, when it comes to Peter Mandelson, it's like, yeah, my friend is a paedophile and now he's in prison, but he's not. He allegedly, I think it was Mandelson said something like, or was it Mandelson? Maybe it was West Streeting who believed that maybe Mandelson was friends with Epstein because he thought that Epstein shouldn't have been in prison or something like that. We know everything about, or not everything, but we know a significant amount about that individual. Why would you be friends with somebody like that? What? A question also has to be asked, what does Peter Mandelson have on the Labour government, on Keir Starmer, on West Streeting, on other senior figures, on Morgan McSweeney? Does Peter Mandelson know something that those people don't want released? Because, they criticize him, and said, he was wrong to do this and that they're angry and stuff like that. But Mandy's issued a notice to all press to leave him alone. As used to people grieving, traumatized. The Nationals published it. Just leave me alone. I'm going through a difficult time. I lied to the Prime Minister again. How many times does this guy have to lie before people go, okay, we should keep him away from positions of power? Police are searching for Mandy's Horcrux. Thanks, Brad. Does anyone know how new members join? Maybe one of the moderators can point you in the right direction for that. They're after his computers. Probably, yes. There were boys in the island and the ranch too. They were regularly beaten up for entertainment. Allegedly, there have been a number of murders on the island as well, and other sites that Epstein owned. Some of the information that's come out is just abhorrent, and we're just scratching the surface, it seems. Police search Range Rover outside home linked to Mandelson. Still no blue tent, like for Nicola Sturgeon, it seems. Starmer warned a significant volume of material needs to be reviewed. Wonderful. Oh, they have big boxes. Police continue to search at properties linked to Mandelson. Those are big boxes. Former Prime Minister greatly regrets appointing Mandelson to ministerial position in 2008. So Gordon Brown has said he greatly regrets bringing Peter Mandelson into the government, the former Prime Minister wrote to The Guardian. Like, how many times did he have to be sacked? Like, this is not Peter Mandelson resigned, because of health reasons or something. No, he was sacked a number of times from the government, and then he just kept coming back. He reminded me of, what's the name of the guy in The Simpsons? Was it not Charlie? I forget what his name is. Who go to Moe's Tavern, and then Moe would kick him out, and then he'd be automatically back in again. I forget what his name is. Nigel Farage. No. Barney, yes, Barney. Is Charles going to be investigated? No, of course, Charles be investigated. Why would Charles be investigated? Barney Gumble, yes. The term we're looking for is unflushable turd. Yeah, that's Peter Mandelson. But I think he may be flushed this time because I don't think he's going to come back from this. I think he's gone this is a bridge too far. Anyway, guys, let's move on to the next one, which is in relation to this. So, according to a former member of the Labour Party, well, he thinks it's over.
I read your column today, and it's the best I've ever read. It reeks of cold, dispassionate fury.
Actually, I think Patrick Maguire is a former advisor, sorry.
Basically saying it's over and pointing out what you say is the fundamental flaw in Keir Starmer.
Yes, it is over. And I've been really struck by the number of people in the Labour Party who've got in touch with me today to say they agree with what I've written, including people around Keir Starmer who've worked for Keir Starmer who, frankly, always thought I was a bit of a prat and never really engaged with me.
Why is Starmer pretending that he has a career left? Just resign. I think the problem is that if he resigns now, they'll have to have a leadership contest. And who wants to be the leader right before the May elections? Because I think the party would prefer Starmer to remain in position until May. And then if the May elections are a disaster, then he would take the responsibility for that and then go. I think that's the plan. I had said that the first 72 hours will be the most critical, and if he survives that, he'll be okay until May. And I think that's what they're doing. They also don't have really anyone who can take over, because when it comes to West Streeting was deeply connected to Peter Mandelson. He was seen as a sort of protege. And then Angela Rayner still has her tax issues that need to be resolved, and she hasn't received any feedback from HMRC. So they have to review that, and then she'll be probably given the all clear, but she has to wait for that to come through. So they are the two in the front running. Now, there are some other people like Andy Burnham, but Andy Burnham is on the outside at the moment. And another guy is called Al Kearns. Now, Al Kearns, I actually covered him in a video some weeks back, or maybe it was a week ago. And he's a military veteran. And he's really popular within the Labour Party, but he's not very well known. I think he's a military minister. He's like a MOD minister, or he's a veterans minister. I don't remember, but he's related to the military anyway in some way. And he's an actual candidate. And I don't know very much about him, so we'll have to wait and see. But I think we're not going to really see anything on this side of the election. We'll have to wait until after. Because once again, if somebody did take over now, and then you had the disaster of the May elections, then they would be wrongly blamed for it, or they would have to take responsibility for it. And then you'd have another resignation. So it makes sense, if you're going to have a resignation, you have it after the May elections, not before. But Starmer is just a dead man walking. He's a lame duck at this stage, because he won't be able to command support of the party on pretty much anything. To paraphrase Eddie Hitler, perhaps Mandelson has a picture of Starmer with a Chippendale, an industrial-sized drum of Swarfaga. Okay. I'm not sure I fully understand that reference from Bottom, but I must check it out. Thanks, Freckle Bunny. It's Peter Mandelson really has thrown Keir Starmer under a bus, and it seems that Keir Starmer was not somebody who was fully on board with Peter Mandelson being the ambassador. Why did Peter Mandelson why was he appointed to be ambassador? It seems to be, once again, Morgan McSweeney that has been throwing the entire party under a bus. I don't know why Morgan McSweeney wasn't fired months ago. He's the one who's responsible for these U-turns. He's the one who's responsible for all of these terrible policies. He's the one who was pushing them. If you remember, when, what's her name? Sue Gray. When Sue Gray was still Keir Starmer's advisor, they were actually doing quite well in the polls. There was that bounce, okay, that post-election bounce, but Labour were actually quite popular. And then Sue Gray was removed and replaced with Morgan McSweeney. And of course, Morgan McSweeney, I don't know if we can blame it all on him, but the policies were terrible. The winter fuel allowance. Okay, let's have this change to the winter fuel allowance. And then, and I said at the time, all you need is a few old people to die and the right-wing media will jump on it. And the right-wing media were jumping on it even before that. So there was there was so much negativity connected to it. So, the policy itself maybe is somewhat popular with the public, but it was not popular with the party. And it was seen as punishing the elderly. And then you had the farmers issue, and then you had the support for people on benefits. Then you had the support for people who are disabled, PIP, all of these things. And it was, who was coming up with these policies? It seemed it was Morgan McSweeney. And Morgan McSweeney is one of these blue Labour people, which are a bit like, not exactly, but they're a bit like Tory light. They believe that benefits should be taken from people and you force people into work. When it comes to Brexit, they're on the side of Nigel Farage and reform. They're anti-immigration. These, they're pretty much like the Tories, but in the Labour Party. And the policies they were pushing were Tory light or Reform UK light, and they're not working. Even today, the Home Secretary is putting out videos about immigration numbers are down. We're deporting more people. And who's that to satisfy? Because the people you're pandering to are going to reform. They're not going to vote for the Labour Party. This obsession with immigration, I really don't understand it. What Trump says today, Farage says tomorrow. Yes, exactly. Labour fucked up by accepting new shiny wardrobe before they took power. That was another problem, yes. The donors were offering them goodies, and I was saying at the time, why are you doing this? Just reject the goodies, reject the donations, reject the tickets, the free tickets, all of these things, because you ran on a platform of change. You said, we're not going to be like the Conservatives. That was the message. Keir Starmer, change. And then you had all this, well, we're taking the, Taylor Swift tickets and stuff like this. And, it's small fry, but it's the optics of it. You're supposed to be different from the Conservative. Where was the party? The chief whip should have gone to everyone and said, look, you're not allowed to take anything. Okay? If you take anything, you're going to damage the party. And if you damage the party, out you go. But no. Government ministers getting all sorts of goodies. And, and it rubbed people the wrong way. We're talking about small things, but it's the optics of it. It's the perception people have. Sleepwalking into fascism, and no one is doing anything about it. And this is the point as well. If Labour don't improve the situation for ordinary people, I hate to be like a broken record on this, but if I say it enough, maybe people will realise if they don't improve the situation, people will vote for reform. And we have to get away from this idea that it's only racists that vote for reform. No, ordinary people will vote for reform because they will be sick of the status quo. We saw it with Donald Trump in 2024. People voted for Trump because they were tired of what the Democrats were doing. They didn't believe that the Democrats cared about them. They didn't feel that their lives were getting better. So they took a chance with Donald Trump. Didn't work out very well. And it would be the same if people vote for Reform UK. People will not be voting for them because they like Reform or like Farage. It's because they're sick of the status quo. And that's why it's so important that Labour improved the situation for ordinary people, and they demonstrated that they are the ones responsible for that. They need to start putting money in people's pockets. People have to start feeling better off. They have to feel positive. Positivity is in very short supply. I try and commend them on things that they do well. I think, when it came to the boost in the minimum wage, these are things that are positive, but they're few and far between. And they're not helping themselves if they keep focusing on issues like immigration. We hear more from the government on immigration than we hear about NHS waiting lists coming down. Why is that? That's Morgan McSweeney once again. The blue Labour people are like, yeah, fuck that NHS stuff. We need to keep talking about immigration. Because if we convince, is it like in their mind? Is their thinking, well, if we bring down immigration numbers, that means people will be less likely to vote for reform and they'll come back to us. It's not working. Because the racists will always vote for the full fat racist, not the racist light. And people will believe that Nigel Farage will bring down immigration because if they see immigration numbers not coming down, and it's not so much about the numbers, it's the feeling that people have in general. And the media is not helping either. The media is convincing people that immigration is a top priority when it's obviously not for most people. I couldn't care less about immigration. I care about housing and the cost of living. Imagination, I saw, but I imagine you mean immigration. But you're right, Sarah. Most people care about housing. They care about the cost of living. They don't care about immigration. Because if you look at immigration as a whole, it's a positive because you have people working in different sectors of the economy. There are people contributing. The Tories own the migrant hotels. And now some of them are in Reform UK. Robert Jenrick, the guy who was responsible for the hotels, he's in Reform UK. Anyway, let's continue with this.
As one person said, you and I were never the best of friends, but I have to say you've written the best account of this entire sorry saga. Now, I don't say that to say I'm brilliant, although if Richard Bacon wants to say so again, he's welcome to. More that my column argues that Keir Starmer is not a politician. He has never done the things that most leaders of the Labour Party do, which is grow up in the Labour Party, have a more than instrumental relationship with the Labour Party, have a network of people, think seriously about politics. Instead, he just outsources and outsources and outsources all the major political decisions he takes, be that on policy, be that on personnel, be that on strategy itself. And for a period, that worked for everybody in the Labour Party. But ultimately, people at the top of it, from the cabinet ministers who didn't endorse him for the leadership in 2020 because they didn't think he was up to it, to Blairites like Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson and many, many others who in various ways have served this government. Bluntly, and I think we have to be blunt given the situation the Prime Minister and the Labour Party are in now, they have always seen him at best as a bit of a cold fish who means well, works hard, but doesn't really understand politics. And at worst, they see him as a bit of an idiot.
Wow. Okay. So it's from being a bit of an idiot to being a cold fish. So that's how the Labour Party see their leader. I had said at the time that Keir Starmer presents himself as something like a technocratic prime minister and coming in to fix the problem. And that's fine. And that will work for a short period of time. But there was no vision. What is the Labour Party's vision at the moment? That's the question you have to ask. And I keep asking this question. What is the Labour vision? What do they want to achieve? What is the end goal? Because if you look at Farage and others, they will say the end goal is bringing down immigration. We will bring down immigration. And people can sort of see that. Not that he will actually be able to achieve that, and not that that would actually be good for Britain, but he will sell that as his end goal. The Liberal Democrats maybe will say, we want to have the UK back in the European Union, or we want to have a society that is more equal, maybe. The Greens, the same. They want to have a government that deals with climate change. They want to bring down the cost of living. There are things that they have. These are their goals. These are their long-term visions. What is the Labour Party's vision? It used to be the party of the working class, the party of the vulnerable, the poorest in society. Now they don't even use the word working class. When was the last time you heard Keir Starmer talk about working class? Unless it's a slip-up, and he was meant to say working families or something like that. But you have to get back to your roots. And I think their best choice for leader would be Angela Rayner. Now, she has her own baggage, but she's the best of a bad lot. I think she would be much better than Wes Streeting. And she would represent ordinary people better. But once again, it's not about the personality, it's about the vision. So there's no point replacing Keir Starmer with Angela Rayner if the policies are the same and there's no vision for the future. There's no point replacing him with Andy Burnham if Andy Burnham is just going to repeat the same things. The party is over at that stage. Anything but reform. Sadly, this is the reality we're living in, is that the only way to stop reform is the Labour Party. The Labour Party is the only party that can stop reform in England. In Wales, it's Plaid. In Scotland, it's the SNP. But when it comes to England, Labour and maybe the Tories working together. I hate to say this, but the Tories here, I just want to go off on a tangent for a second. The Tories are the wild card. If the Tories start to do well, this would be detrimental for reform. This would actually help the Labour Party in the sense that it will split the right-wing vote. What we've seen in the past is how reform were splitting the right-wing vote and damaging the Conservatives, or harming the Conservatives. So the Conservatives were moving in the direction of reform. Now what we're sort of seeing is reform moving a little bit in the direction of the Conservatives, but the Conservatives could still have a chance to plant a flag in the centre and say, we are a centre-right party. We're not a radical right party like Reform. I think Kemi Badenoch is too stupid to understand that. I'm sorry to say it, but I don't think she has the ability to understand that. There's a real niche there, a centre ground that the Conservatives could occupy. But they don't want to do that. They want to pander to Reform. Every time they talk about immigration, they're losing support to Reform. But if the Conservatives start to recover a little bit, and we're starting to see something of that, this is going to worry Nigel Farage, because a few percentage points here and there could stop him from winning a majority. And then he'd be forced into a position where he'd have to form a coalition government. And we know that coalition governments don't last very long, and they can be extremely damaging to the smaller party. So if the Conservatives go into coalition with Reform, they will be damaged by that. Now, it could help Reform in the long term, but Reform are not about improving people's lives. They're not interested in investing in public services. It's a sort of MAGA movement for the UK. Sorry, I missed some of your comments, guys. I just want to go back. We have one super chat from David. Thank you so much, David McGuinness. Hope you're well up there in Scotland. Labour stand for change. As it turns out, it's for the worst. Yes, it hasn't worked out very well for them, no. And the situation has just got worse and worse. And once again, what is the vision? What do they want to achieve at the end of the parliament? I don't know. That should be a question that if you have a Labour MP in your constituency, that's the question you should ask them. What is the goal? What is the end goal of this parliament? What do you want to have achieved by the end of this parliament? There are some policies, but what is the vision? What are people voting for at the very high level? The UK is not American, obviously. No, of course not. We are European. The UK is European. Wake up and be European again. Yeah, well, that's the message I try to send out. The UK's greatest allies at the moment are, of course, Europe. In Europe, the European Union and European countries. The United States is not an ally of the UK or pretty much anyone at the moment, unless it's Russia. Let's move on. I want to show you this clip. I was going to do a break, but we'll just continue right through. I want to show you this clip. This is quite interesting.
Some of your councillors have defected to Reform. They've had enough of the Conservative Party. Are you going to join them?
No, I'm not. And let me be very clear, Rob. Reform UK does not have a plan for Wales. They have slogans, they have complaints, but they have no serious policies. And with all the going-ons in Westminster this week, I don't even think they can have a leader they all support. And if they can organise themselves, how can they possibly claim to be a credible alternative for Wales? And let's not forget, these councillors have just joined a party that supports expanding the Senedd. And one of those councillors who has moved spoke to me a couple of weeks ago about how disgraceful this was for Wales and how much it was going to cost. I'm sorry, these people are total hypocrites. And for Reform UK doesn't represent Wales. They've got no clear plans for Wales, no clear leader in Wales. And I think they've made a huge mistake joining Reform UK, because the only party on the right which can fix Wales is the Welsh Conservatives. And it's a shame that they've left. As I always said, you know who your friends are when the chips are down. But let me be clear, I'm a Welsh Conservative. You cut me through, I'll be blue to the day I ever depart this world. And I support the Welsh Conservatives, support Darren Millar as a clear leader of our party to fix Wales and be the next First Minister of Wales.
Right.
So that was James Evans, a Conservative. Actually, no, he's no longer a Conservative because he has defected to Reform UK. These people are pathetic, aren't they? I'm blue. If you cut me, I'll still be blue. I'll be blue until the day I die. Well, actually, not until the day I die. Until this was from March last year. Okay, so in less than 12 months, he has already defected to Reform UK. Oh my goodness, these people are pathetic, aren't they? They're opportunists. They will say, I am a true Conservative. And then there's like, okay, the Conservatives not doing very well, but Reform are doing well, I'll jump ship. It's like they have no principles whatsoever. I'm not against people defecting. But if you do defect, you need to have a by-election. Reform are talking about if Keir Starmer goes, there needs to be an election. The same people who are saying we don't need a by-election if somebody defects. But if Keir Starmer is replaced by another, so if a Labour leader is replaced by another Labour leader, we need to have a general election. But if you move from one party to another, you don't need to have an election. Okay, well, that's clear, isn't it? Look, I don't know if I've said before that if the leader changes, there should be a general election. That's my position. Now, whether that will actually come to pass is another thing. I don't have control over Parliament, but I'm consistent. When Boris Johnson was replaced by Liz Truss, I said there should have been a general election because people voted for a particular policy. Liz Truss represented something very different. So it would have been right to have a general election because people would be voting on a new manifesto. When Liz Truss was replaced by Rishi Sunak, I said at the time there should be a general election because you have a new leader. Obviously, the last one failed with her policies. A new one came in with new policies. Now, I know it's not necessary, but from a consistent point of view, I believe if you change leader, there should be a general election. Now, that's not going to happen, of course. It didn't happen before, and it's unlikely to happen this time. So if Keir Starmer does resign, whoever takes over will just take over. There won't be general election. There will be pressure to have one from Reform, of course, and from the Conservatives. But I don't think that's going to happen, at least straight away, because it would be extremely damaging for the Labour Party. And they know that they would see Reform enter power. Now, the problem is that I think there would be a lot of pressure from the media as well. Journalists would be constantly asking, is there going to be a general election? Is there going to be a general election? They didn't ask it when Liz Truss took over. They didn't ask it when Rishi Sunak took over. But I can be sure that a lot of journalists will be, especially from the right-wing press, the Daily Mail or the Sun or GB News or wherever, they will be calling for a general election, saying, oh, are you afraid or whatever. So 2029 being so far in the future is our only hope. Labour must make the bastards wait. Yeah. What happens if Keith is replaced by somebody who actually starts implementing the things Keith promised before the election? It's not so much about implementing policies, it's about improving the situation and convincing people that you are responsible for that. That's really important, because when Joe Biden was president, the situation in the US was actually improving quite a lot. People were generally better off, but they didn't feel that they were better off. The vibes were not good. So many people decided, I'm going to vote for the alternative. They thought that things would get better with Donald Trump. You know, the far-right press in the US, the Fox News, the Newsmaxes, the podcasters, all of these people were constantly talking about how America was falling off a cliff, how, there were too many trans people and stuff like that. And this convinced a lot of people to vote for Donald Trump because they thought, well, the country has lost its way. We're spending money on immigrants and we should maybe spend money on ourselves. You know, the same old argument. You know, the right wing will say we need to spend money on our own. And then as soon as you say, well, how about some money for homeless people? They're like, no, they're all lazy and feckless and drug addicts and we should have nothing to do with them. No, we should, carry out we should have them as part of some sort of Hunger Games or something like that. That's the response when it comes to, a little bit of questioning on, for example, homeless people. But if it's in the scope of immigration, then we should be prioritizing our own people. We should be providing them housing. It's once again very extremely hypocritical. If you thought things could only get better by getting Trump in again, give your head a wobble. But people believe that. That's the problem. It's a massive mistake is to think people will not vote for this guy because he's terrible. And the approach when it comes to Farage cannot be people should not vote for Nigel Farage because he's terrible. That's not going to work. Let me be very frank about this. It's not going to work. It's been tried in the past and it has failed. When it came to Donald Trump in 2016, Hillary Clinton described, what did she say there? I forget the term she used to describe Trump supporters. But she also described Trump as a terrible individual. It didn't work. People are not going to be turned off Nigel Farage because the media say we don't like Nigel Farage, or because other politicians describe Nigel Farage as a racist or anything. The term racist is not going to stop people from voting for him. The only way basket of deplorables, thanks guys. The only way you can turn people off from voting for reform is by improving their situation. That's the guaranteed way, because people will have invested something. They will feel that the situation is improving. They will say, do you remember the bad old days? Remember things are actually getting better now. Look there's new buildings going up. My kid has a job. There are courses available for people to do things. The situation feels more positive. It's all about vibes for many people. It's not so much about policies. It's not even that much about personalities. 5p off a pint, that's not going to work. Pubs are closing. People can't afford to go to the pub. Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to knock 5p off a pint. Yeah, that's going to really turn things around. You'd need to be giving away beer for free. I know this sounds insane, but if you put out this is what Trump is doing. Trump is promising people $5,000 checks. They never turn up. But when he talks about these $5,000 checks, he actually gets a bit of a boost in the polls because people think, oh, we're actually going to get some free money. And then nothing arrives. So then they're like, oh, okay. You can't keep doing that. You actually have to deliver something. If Keir Starmer, I can guarantee, if Keir Starmer said tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to give people money, he would get a boost in the polls. People who hated him would actually go, oh, actually, that's quite good, because they'd feel better off. Give people money. You know, a UBI. Okay, we've hit the big red button, a UBI. But we're going to have to go down some road like this because we can't continue like this. You're not going to convince people to vote for the status quo if the status quo means misery. That's what people need to learn from this. Speaking of misery, I wanted to show you this clip of the DUP. Now, for people who don't know, the DUP is a very strange political party in Northern Ireland. And the President of Ireland, the new President of Ireland, visited Derry, or as some people call it, Londonderry, and didn't get a very positive response from the DUP.
The DUP's Gregory Campbell has told the Irish President, "You are in our country," during her visit to Londonderry. In a short meeting, the MP also challenged President Connolly on what he described as her imbalanced address for only referring to the city as Derry. In their interaction, the President said she is here to listen, but Mr Campbell warned her not to rewrite history.
I thought that her speech wasn't as balanced as it should have been and could have been, and that hopefully she would be able to take lessons from that, learn from that, and we all have to learn from our mistakes and hopefully not repeat the unbalanced approach.
It's like, you know, we often say, if you don't have something good, don't say anything at all. But that doesn't apply to the DUP. The DUP never learned that lesson. The DUP were never listening when their parents were saying, if you don't have something good, don't say anything at all. That's the DUP to Max Painful, isn't it? Yes, it is. Oh my goodness. What's Gaelic for dinosaur? Max keeps hinting about a UBI, but never explains what it is. A UBI is a universal basic income, so it's about £1,000 or €1,000 per month to everyone for the rest of their life. It sounded weird and wacky a few years ago, but now the AI and AI and robotics and automation are going to take all our jobs, including podcasters and YouTubers. We need to have a plan B, and unfortunately, I don't hear much about a plan B at the moment. There is no plan B. You know, we keep hearing, I'm going off on a tangent for, I promise, for just a few minutes, just half an hour. You know, we keep hearing about how we need to force people off benefits and into jobs because there are all these jobs to be done. Yes, but if AI is going to be taking people's jobs, or it's going to create a situation where people are not being hired, in a sense, not being laid off, but not being hired. So new people are not being hired. What are they supposed to do? How are they supposed to get by? So we should start taxing the AI companies and using that money to fund a UBI, or tax interactions, you know, between transactions, you know, online transactions, stuff like that. We need to find some way to pay for all of this. Because if we don't, and it gets out of control, then we're in serious trouble. So I want to show you this clip, very quick clip about, actually no, that's not the one.
The world is not yet taking the steps that are needed to mitigate the risk that AI will lead to human extinction.
There we go. We're not taking the risk. We're not taking the risk seriously that could lead to human extinction. And this is about an artificial superintelligence, which is actually way beyond what we're talking about at the moment. But I'll leave that video for another day. I want to show you this clip when it comes to Scotland. David, thanks so much for that super chat. Plan B: become a plumber. No laptop is fixing my pipes. You could apply that in many ways, because pipes can be all sorts of. But yes, it's no laptop, no robot is going to fix my pipes. Plumber, electrician, any sort of job that requires you working with your hands is something to train up on. it's going to protect you for at least another 10 years, maybe just 5 years. I'm not sure. Between 5 and 10 years, you should be okay if you're a plumber. But after that, yeah, the robots are going to take over. Anyway, I want to show you this clip here from a podcast in Scotland, which is talking about how reform could actually help the SNP.
At Times reports that senior insiders at Holyrood, smaller pro-independence party is how they describe the Scottish Greens, reveal that they expect to stand in only a dozen or so of the 73 first-past-the-post seats at May's election. Instead, they're going to focus on picking up MSPs on regional lists. Right, who wants to go first on the dynamics of this? Andy, shall I come to you? What does this mean? What is the purpose of this? What is the likely outcome of this? What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, it is meaningful. There isn't any question about that, because if you're somebody who might be inclined to vote for the Greens, and if you're somebody who might be inclined to vote for the Greens, at least in part because they're a pro-independence party, then obviously this is not going to do the SNP any harm. I'm not sure I would overstate it, though. The Greens primarily get their support through the regional list, and actually the electorate has shown itself in that side of things to be quite sophisticated, because you see in pretty much every poll that Green support goes up considerably from the constituency vote to the regional vote, and in the same way SNP support goes down quite considerably and very considerably actually from the constituency vote to the regional vote. So this might make a difference in some areas, but the difference is not great. The bigger difference that's being made in constituencies everywhere, bigger than the Greens not standing, is that Reform is standing. Because Reform are taking very, very chunky amounts of both Tory vote and Labour vote share. So the SNP might want to pat the Greens on the back a little bit for not standing in constituencies, but the party the SNP really needs to pat on the back much, much harder is the Reform Party, because the fact that they are standing in constituencies is what's going to enable the SNP to win lots of constituencies on a vote share that's maybe 10 to 15% lower than it was the last time. So the real friends to the SNP in this election are actually Reform, not the Greens.
Wow, okay. So I don't know if our Scottish friends would agree with that, but it certainly looks like what Reform are doing is they're splitting the pro-unionist vote. So people who would vote for the Labour Party or vote for the Conservatives, now a lot of them are splitting off to vote for Reform. And of course, you're not going to see a zero, you're not going to see a complete 100% shift from Labour to Reform or from the Conservatives to Reform, but all you need is maybe even 50% of that vote to go to Reform, and that means that they're going to split the the unionist vote. So this is going to this is likely to help the SNP, even though according to them the SNP vote is down. Now this is going to work for this election, but if Labour disappear after this election in Scotland, then Reform will benefit from that. If the Conservatives disappear after this election, then Reform will benefit from that in the long term. So Reform are in a position where they're not going to do very well probably in Scotland this time round, but if they replace Labour or the Conservatives in Scotland, then in the following election, so what is it, 2030, I'm not sure, whenever the next Holyrood election is, it will be a case of reform. That's if the Conservatives and Labour do not run, but that's way in the distance, so it's going to be very difficult to imagine. And it of course depends on what happens in 2029 at the Westminster elections, because if Reform get into power there, it will become clear whether people in Scotland want to see more of Reform or less of them. Unfortunately, migrants such as myself can only vote UK general elections, not in Holyrood ones. He's correct, says David. David is our expert. Reform might recognise the existence of Longford. Or Cavan, maybe Cavan either. I don't think anyone in Reform would be able to draw a map, to draw the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic on a map. Don't think many politicians would actually be able to do that. Maybe even the Northern Ireland Secretary might. I think he'd be able to, but not many people would be able to. And I'm talking about maybe also politicians in Ireland. AI is warming up. It's getting very hot, yet still it can't compete with Max Robespierre's bot. Speaking of which, I will be on the post-stream chat after the show, so do check that out. And I'm thinking of moving the post-stream chat to become a pre-stream chat for people on Discord. So next Tuesday, maybe we will have the chat before the live stream, and then we'll go straight into the live stream. So I'm going to test out a few different features there. My housing association is giving me a new bathroom soon, Suzanne. That's good. Not sure anyone in Reform would be able to find any part of it on a map. That's why it should be called Reform GB, not Reform UK. Cavan is imaginary. I remember it well. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you to everyone who sent a super chat, greatly appreciated. And thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job, as always. Before we go, we have this one for the road. I hope you enjoy it. And I will see you, some of you on the post-stream chat tonight, and I'll see others on Tuesday next for another live stream. So have a great weekend, everyone, and hope you enjoy this before we go.
Colin from Portsmouth is on the line. Hello, Colin.
I am shocked by these revelations, Anthony. Shocked. I didn't expect Andrew to be dodgy because he's a royal.
Absolutely not. Who'd have thought it, Colin?
And now Mandelson, he seemed like such a stand-up, decent bloke. The one Labour figure I liked because he was basically a Tory. Typical bloody Labour, this is.
Colin, you said the files were a hoax to attack the right a few months ago.
Well, that's before I realised there were bad people on the left. Now I want to hear more.
Well, they're asking Mandelson if he'll give up his peerage. I mean, what do you think about that?
When has a huge national scandal stopped people from sitting in the House of Lords?
And Andrew has been forced out of his big house and put in a slightly smaller house, Colin.
Which is anything but a palace, I might add. It was the Queen's holiday destination. Basically a static caravan.
So both of them are given handouts despite being unemployed.
Benefit scroungers, the pair of them. It just goes to show, Anthony, any one of us is 2 missed paychecks from having to live in Sandringham. That's a sobering thought. Anyway, mate, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. Love to the family.
If I find out Donald did something wrong, my mind will be truly blown.
Yes. So guys, have a great weekend. I will see you. Whoops, here we go. I will see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.